Good evening, everyone. I would like to tell you my inspirational story of me and my daughter. Actually, half a lifetime. It's an incredible journey we've had together. She came to me in my life in the summer of my 28th year. Having her in my household was always such a pleasure. I'd play with her on the living room floor because, I'm just a child at heart. We had dinosaurs, army men, mega blocks. We'd line them up on the coffee table and we would tell each other snippets of their imaginary lives these plastic figures were living. Sometimes I'd try to get a war started because that's what army men do, right? Wrong. She'd guide it back to, this orc is building a shop and your men want to go shopping. I saw her fast becoming a determined toddler. When she was old enough to be on the playground by herself, and other kids her age approached her on the playground equipment, and my wife gently held me back and said, "Let her have this. Let her play with the other children." I saw her becoming a very sociable preschooler. When she went through a phase of being afraid of monsters, I switched to reading one of my favorite stories, Piers Anthony's Ogre. It's a book about a monster who wasn't a monster after all, but half human. It definitely was my favorite book. And the plan worked. She overcame her fears. So I saw her becoming a very brave little sprite. In elementary school, I encouraged her to try all sorts of activities: choir, soccer, kung fu. Over the course of middle school, I instructed her, keep trying new things, but let's eventually narrow it down to that one activity that's going to carry you through to the end of high school. Well, she chose scouting, partially because her classmate was nervous about Scarlet. He wanted to join, but he didn't want to do it by himself, so he asked her to join him, and they both joined together. She agreed without a moment's hesitation. Yes, indeed, I saw her becoming a very kind-hearted person. And I was there every weekend, in the same building or at a campsite nearby, as they do, the volunteer teaching with the other parents. She needed me, sure, but not directly like she did when she was younger. She just needed to know I was nearby. And I was there as they became one of the closest knit packs that I'd ever seen. And every single one in that pack had become an Eagle Scout, including my daughter. Partially because they just would not let each other fail. They pulled each other forward to achieve accomplishing the goals that they needed. Yes. Oh, I saw her becoming a very capable teen. And when she started college, I encouraged her to choose a nonprofit to volunteer with. Well, as a healthy distraction from study. You can't study all the time. She took my advice and she chose the resource center downtown. I felt so proud of her. She took my advice, and so I felt so proud of her that she was giving of her time, contributing her time in earnest to make the world a better place to live in. And the best part is that she took my advice, so I knew she was wise. Well, I felt so proud of her. But during those early college years, she moved into her grandpa's house to be within biking distance of the campus, where she took some paying jobs at the school lab. I missed her so much, and I was experiencing a little lonesome empty nest syndrome. It was sometime after this that she transitioned to her gender. Believe me, I didn't see that coming. You see, before my daughter was a daughter, my daughter was a son. She had done her own research, okay? And she had gathered firsthand testimonials long before she made her decision. And when she made her decision, she was sure. But she wanted to be safe, too. So she made some strategic moves so that her parents, me, couldn't retaliate against her, just simply because she'd seen it happen to so many other kids where their parents had retaliated against them. She wanted to make sure. And she even told me last. She told her grandma first. She told her mom first. She told her grandpa. But, that was because I was important to her. And that made me the scariest, the half monster, half human in her life. We'd always been so close. She had been for a long time, Daddy's little boy. A harsh tantrum, a mean word for me right now at this juncture in her life, well, it would have smashed her to pieces, like Ogre smashing a tangle tree to smithereens. To be honest, it really wasn't easy for me at first. I went through the stages of grief, but I was the adult. I was the parent. I needed to let go of my idea of who she had been, to accept her of who she is now. The toddler who played dinosaurs was no longer. She became the preschooler who walked to the park. The child who socialized with other kids on the playground was no more. That child became a middle schooler who would not hesitate to help a friend. And that child became a teen, very capable young person. I had to deal with this. It was in my head. But I tell you what, the analogy that made it easier for me that I thought of is that, and imagine that you're walking around all day long with your feet sore and aching. You know something isn't right. And then one moment you look down and you notice your shoes are on backwards. Well, your first reaction is going to be to stop and fix it. Even if you're on a ladder, you want to climb down from the ladder and fix it. It makes sense. But imagine a kid going through their whole childhood just kind of like feel like something's not right and they can't put their finger on it. And one day they realize what it is, it's not right. And society tells them they can't. It's a very scary time. And what I've learned is, to all you fathers out there, I want to say, if this ever happens to you, if you find yourself in my shoes, just remember that this is your flesh and blood and they need your acceptance. Toastmaster, contest master.
We'll have an indefinite silence for the judges to mark and tally their ballots, and for the ballot counters to collect all ballots. Everyone, you may turn on your video at this time, but please keep your sound muted and refrain from chatting.